So good morning and welcome. My name is Reverend Dr. Ron Fox, and I'd like to welcome you all to the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast Sunday morning celebration. And if there's anybody listening to this week that has never been to a Center for Spiritual Living before, we believe there's one God, many paths to that God, and we're here to love, honor, and support you no matter what your divine path is. And the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast is a safe haven for people of all beliefs and lifestyles, whoever you are and wherever you may find yourself on your spiritual journey, you're welcome here. And so this morning, we're going to begin our service with my wife, Becky, who's a practitioner emeritus, opening us with a prayer. And then a little different this morning, I'm going to do the spiritual reading. So Beck.
So I just invite every one of us to turn within to that place of the Most High. It's here where we are knowing our oneness in divine spirit, this wonderful infinite power of love, this energy of love that is always here within us. And I'm knowing my oneness in this infinite power, this infinite love, that it is who and what I am. And so I'm knowing that this morning is filled with its love, and its light, that it is right here, always within each and every one of us in the situation this morning, that it is unfolding this wonderful divine energy. And so let's just take a deep breath in, just remembering the oneness that each one of us is. That every breath that we take in is a reminder that spirit is our very source. There is no separation. So knowing that everything that is unfolding in divine perfection, that this wonderful divine energy of love is guiding and directing Reverend Dr. Ron's message. It is flowing so easily through him, as him, and for him. It is opening up our hearts and our minds, deepening our awareness of love and today's message, so that we can bring in the meaning into our everyday lives. So for this and so much more, I'm so thankful. I'm thankful for life itself. I release this knowing that it comes back to each one of us in fullness and completeness. Thank you. Thank you, Divine Spirit. And so it is.
So it is. Thank you, Becky. So several years ago, I had a column. I shared a column with two other people in Science of Mind magazine. And I don't exactly remember when I wrote this piece, but it was probably 2 or 2.5 years ago. It was one of my columns. And its title is Compassion in Action. Today, we're once again feeling the effects of a pandemic that, as I write this column, has killed over 150,000 of our fellow Americans. Last week, after a Sunday celebration, the question that my congregation wanted to discuss was, how can I help? With so many people suffering, we want to step forward, but the problems are so enormous that what can we offer often feels like a drop in the bucket. A story by Lauren Isley puts it into perspective. A man walking on the beach sees a young boy throwing something into the ocean. He asks, "What are you doing?" The boy responds, "Throwing starfish into the ocean. The surf is up and the tide is going out, and if I don't throw them back, they will die." The man replies, "Son, there are hundreds of them. You can't make a difference." The boy bends down, picks one up, and throws it into the ocean, turns to the man and says, "I made a difference for that one." The point is, what we do The point is we do what we can where we can. There are so many ways we can exhibit our compassion. They may not be big and grand, but they're meaningful. We can cook a meal for a neighbor, go shopping for a friend, make a call to someone who needs cheering up, donate to a food bank, and on and on. There are as many ways to help as there are needs in our community. No act is too small to bring joy to somebody. When we step up and show someone we care, that is often all they need. Ram Dass and Paul Gorman remind us in their book, How Can I Help? Quote, we can of course help through all we do, but at the deepest level, we help through all we are, unquote. You and I are the conduit of God's love on this plane. Perhaps the great lesson of this virus is even in times of great pain and distress, we have the power to heal one another. The medicine we have is love, kindness, compassion, and caring. More than ever, we need one another. It takes very little on our part to make a difference in someone's life. As Kent Norburn reminds us, the joy of life is not in the grand gesture, but in the consecration of the moment. Just before I begin, I have to say in that first sentence, I said over 150,000 of us have been killed. The number is now 700,000. So my title this morning is The Tapestry of Life. And I want to begin with something I saw in a piece written by Scott Aubrey, who's a CSL minister, and he comes out with this every week. It's titled Spiritual Passages. And he talks about the Green Bay Packers playing a football game at Lambeau Field earlier this year. And they won the game. But their running back, Aaron Jones, lost the necklace that he was wearing that had the ashes, a portion of the ashes of his father who had died. And his dad came to see every game that Aaron played. But as I said earlier that year, he had died. The Packers had a great night that night. However, the hero was the team trainer named Brian Engel, because Brian stayed on that field for hours. And finally, at 2:00 in the morning, he found Aaron's necklace and returned it to him. Bo Sanchez said, each of us is a vital thread in another person's tapestry. Our lives are woven together for a reason. Lama Surya Das is a Buddhist teacher, and he writes that life is about relationship with ourselves, with each other, with the world. And he said, we need each other to feel connected, to feel each other's presence and each other's love. You know, Mother Teresa years ago said, the world's biggest problem isn't people dying in the streets of Calcutta. It isn't inflation. She said, it's spiritual deprivation. We feel separate from God and from each other. She said, loneliness is like the leprosy of the West. That really blew me away when I read that. Leprosy is like loneliness, rather. Loneliness is like the leprosy of the West. You know, when somebody loves us, they show us the truth of who we are. And if there's somebody in our life that's hurting and we can't help them, it hurts our heart. But no matter what, there's always one thing that we can do. We can love them. And I want to share with you the story from my own life where it felt I didn't know what to do, but it turned out love was the answer. So one of my sons when he was a teenager, had a really bad drug problem. And so we decided that we were going to put him in a drug program that was a 12-month program, and he would stay there for 12 months, sleep and eat, and we could visit, I think, once a week. And so the first day when I was bringing him in, and he wanted to go, in fact, he had said to me, "Dad, if you don't get me in a program, I'll be dead soon." And so we went, and the lady that was in charge of the program, we were sitting there, and she was telling us about all the rules and all the regulations and how everything works. When she got done with her message, she said to us, "I'll leave you two alone for a few minutes." And she walked out, and I can still, and my son was, I think, 15 at the time, and I could still remember that day like it's yesterday. I looked over, he was sitting alongside me, and he's a big guy, he's bigger than I am. And he had on rusty colored jeans, and they were slit up the leg. And so his leg was sticking out, and it was filthy. And his hair, somebody, either he did or somebody did, gave him a haircut, and he had pieces missing, like almost like a dog with mange, just clumps out of it. And he was sitting there, and he was just looking down on the floor, as despondent as somebody could ever be. And I looked at him, and I just said to him, "So Scott, what do we say?" And he didn't even look up, he just shrugged. And I just looked at him, and I had no idea what to say. And so I said the only thing that came into my mind. I said, "Scott, I love you." And he looked at me and burst out crying. And he said, "I love you too." And he literally picked me up, and we just stood there in this room and hugged and cried until it was time for me to go. But I always remember when it felt like there was nowhere to go, nothing to do. Love worked. Loving was the answer. You know, we all want love. We all hunger for genuine communication. And don't we all, on some level, recognize that the quality of our life depends on the quality of our relationships? Ernest Holmes, the founder of the Center for Spiritual Living, wrote, "Every heart responds to the warmth of love. Every mind yearns for its embrace, and no life is complete without it. Love really is the fulfillment of the law of good. Love alone can heal the world and cause people to live together in unity and peace." Matt Kahn is a spiritual writer. And in one of his books, he talks about the power of a compliment. And he said it acts like a selfless blessing of appreciation. It reminds other people that they're valued. And he said, maybe you're telling somebody when you compliment them, maybe you're telling somebody something they've been yearning to hear. Maybe when you compliment somebody, you're freeing them from some kind of pain. And I want to give you two small examples, again, from my own life, not old life, own life. A few years ago, maybe more than a few years ago, I realized that when people go to restaurants or have service people helping them, it's really easy when they don't do something right to criticize them. So I made a vow that when I saw a service person doing something really well, that I would compliment them. And I would just want to give you two small examples that happened recently. There's a coffee shop in Titusville that Becky and I go to because they make really good specialty coffees. And I always get the same one. And one day we were sitting there and Becky said, "How's your drink?" And I said, "This is the best one I've ever had here." And I went to tell the person who made it, and she was in the back. I couldn't get to her. So the next time we went, and she's a young kid, she was up front. And I walked over to her and I said, "You know, I wanted to talk to you the last time we were here. The frozen coffee you made me was the best one I've ever had here." And this young girl's entire face lit up. And she said, "I don't know how to thank you. You just made my week." And one other example, last week, or well, a couple of weeks ago, Becky and I were in a restaurant. We're sitting outside, and not our server, but a lady who was serving the table next to us. The couple next to us was an older couple, and the lady was struggling because she was very hard of hearing. But when they were all done and leaving, in a really kind voice, this server said to them, "Have a great day and be kind to each other." And Becky turned to me and said, "God, isn't that the way she said it was so beautiful?" So I called her over and I told her how we appreciated what they said and how wonderful it was. And again, she just lit up and said, "Sir, you just made my day." And I only share it because I didn't do very much. I just paid a small compliment to somebody, and it touched them in a way we can all do that with no energy and little effort. Rabbi Harold Kushner quotes Dean Ornish, who wrote, "Our survival depends on the healing power of love, intimacy, and relationships." And Kushner said, "You know, we all need to feel loved, to hear people tell us that we're special. And we need to give love to make a difference in somebody else's life. We need other people, and we need to be needed by other people so we can be who we might be, so we can become who we yearn to be." So let me give you two more examples. And the first one is a Sufi fable. And the fable goes that there's a man that is so good in life that the angels go to God and they say, "Can we give him the gift of miracles?" And God, in his infinite wisdom, says, well, you better check with him to see if he wants it. And so they go down and they offer this man several different gifts of miracles. And in each one, he says, "No, thank you." And finally, they say to him, "Well, okay, but you either pick one or we're just going to give you one." And he says, "Okay, I'll pick one. I ask that I might do great good without ever knowing it." And so that's the gift they give him. And so every time his shadow falls behind him, it has the power to heal disease, to soothe pain, and to comfort sorrow. And the people where he lives love him so much and honor him so much that they never mention that gift of miracles to him, because they realize what a loving, humble person he is. And in time, they don't even remember what his name is, and they simply refer to him as the Holy Shadow. The other example I want to give you is a true one that Rachel Remen talks about. And she says when she was a young girl growing up in New York, Christmas time was really special because one of the days at Christmas time, she and her dad would spend the day together in Manhattan. And they would go to Rockefeller Center and watch the skaters, and they would do all kinds of cool stuff. And then they would go shopping. They would go shopping. And as she would go into each store, she would think of each person and what she was going to buy to make them happy. She said it was an opportunity to think about the people she loved and again, what would make them happy. And she said, now, as an adult, thinking back on those days, I realized I really almost never got to see them open their gifts because a lot of them would be mailed away or they would be put under their own Christmas tree. And she said, you know, that never mattered because the important thing wasn't in the opening or the thanking. The important thing was having the blessing of being able to love somebody. Rabbi Byron Sherman tells a story of a couple coming to him and they ask him if he will marry them. And he initially says yes. And they said, and here's a vow that we want to speak to each other. The vow is, I will honor and love you as long as things continue to work out. And he decided he didn't want to do that wedding. And it reminded me of something that I read in a wonderful book by Dr. Robin L. Smith called Lies at the Altar, The Truth About Great Marriages. And some of you might remember Robin. She used to be on Oprah's show all along. And this is kind of the opening chapter. I'm going to read you a couple of paragraphs from the opening chapter. And the chapter is titled, From This Day Forward. It was a beautiful day for a wedding. The church was packed with happy family and friends. The bride was stunning in an ivory satin wedding dress. The groom elegant in a fitted black tuxedo. The wedding party circled them in a color-coordinated cloud of taffeta and tails. As the couple stood before the silver-haired minister and gazed deeply into each other's eyes, then they spoke the vows that they had written themselves. You will be my best friend, she pledged, except for Marcia, who will always be my very, very best friend, and my German Shepherd Spike, who will sleep at the foot of our bed. I promise to take care of you and want only what's good for you, he replied, as long as it works for me and doesn't involve frequent visits from your mother. I'll treasure you for who you are, she said. But once we're married, I'll expect you to drink less, work harder, start showing an interest in the arts, and shave off that beard. What is mine will be yours, he responded, except for the money you don't know about and the cash I'll sock away in a private account just in case things don't work out. I promise to love you unconditionally, she said, until you do something I find intolerable, to forgive and forget, although you know I come from a family of champion grudge holders, and to never go to sleep angry, although I may have to stay up all night. I'll adore you in body and soul, he said, as long as you keep that gorgeous size 6 figure. I promise to love you, to cherish you every day for as long as we both shall live, she answered, her eyes welling up with joyous tears, or as long as I can stand to put up with you. And Robin wrote, this exchange may sound comical, but as often as I am counseling troubled couples, I find similar thoughts and but ifs were lingering just beneath the surface of the wedding vows. And so I thought about that, and I thought to myself that when we love somebody, the question isn't what's in it for me. The question is what's in it for us. And it reminded me, I was doing a wedding once, and the couple asked me if they could do their own vows. And I said yes. And the groom he took a piece of paper out of his pocket and he read some beautiful vows. And it was when it was the bride's turn. She just looked at him. She took her hands and put it on his face like this and looked in his eyes. And she said, I love you. Whatever happens, please never lose faith in us. It choked me up so much. I had to pause before we could go on for the wedding. To me, that was real love. This week, I saw on one of our former constituents who has since moved away, I saw Craig Hopseeker, something on his Facebook page that I want to share with you. People may not always say, I love you, but sometimes it sounds like this. Be safe. Did you eat? Call me when you get home. I made this just for you. So I want to close with two quotes. The first one is from Helen Keller, who said, alone we can do little. Together we can do so much. And the last one is from Maya Angelou, who wrote, we are not our brother's keeper. We are our brother and we are our sister. We must look past complexion and see community. God bless you. Thank you for being here. Have a wonderful week.